This is my buddy, my pal, Bobby Baum. He's the best of the best when it comes to massage therapy, pain management, pain relief. If you have an injury or you are stuck with something that has been nagging you for an extended period of time, Bobby has always been the man that I've gone to, and he has always fixed me 10 out of 10 times. He's also a gold miner. He is a multiple small business owner of too many things that I can't even count. An entrepreneur as entrepreneurs can be, and a really good guy. So Bobby, I'm going to give you the floor to be able to kind of talk about you and how you got started in massage therapy and why you enjoy it, why you've been doing it for so long.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that introduction. I've been doing massage for about 11 years. I went to UNR for health science route. And then when I moved to Reno, it kind of seemed like it was really flooded. So I went to kind of go down the physical therapy route. And then after I had like 1,500 hours of shadowing, I was just working with an older population that like wasn't really wanting to improve. They were just really upset that they weren't improving, but they didn't really want to put any time in on that side. And I got exposed to CrossFit and that type of like world through my buddy Alvy, and that's where I met Joel at Double Edge. And I got to kind of work with people that were really type A that really wanted to improve. And when you have that mentality in that group of people, like they're great listeners, they put the time in, they do their homework, and they see the results. So getting to like almost isolate solely with CrossFitters and bodybuilders, like you can just push so much. Right. So that's kind of like where it's kind of focused from. I think it all kind of started right before Double Edge opened up when everyone was at Mayberry. That's kind of my exposure, and some stuff at UNR too.
Right. And your focus has been ever since that time on, for the most part, athletes, correct?
Absolutely. Just like pain management, trying to like avoid issues, keeping people like focusing on like how they should correctly be sitting, standing, moving, walking, driving, like trying to figure out what they're doing in their day to day that's affecting them physically, preventing them from being able to get back into the gym. Or like if they have not really had a trauma, but they're having like something catch or they can't transition, trying to figure out what's causing that dysfunction.
Right. So you're not only treating the symptom, you're treating the underlying cause as well.
Yeah, trying to just spread out and just ask kind of like help people ask themselves like what the right question is, and then build a plan for whatever they think it might be, so you can kind of chip away at different things and trying to isolate what the issue actually is.
Right. And that's my experience with you. It's always been a comprehensive plan that you've put together when you and I worked together. It's not just like, oh yeah, let me give you like this nice massage, makes me, release some endorphins. I feel better about myself. Right. And then you're like, yeah. Come back later. You and I see each other maybe once a year, maybe when I have an issue, and you treat the symptom, and then you help me with underlying causes, saying like, hey, how have you been like handling this, and what have you been doing throughout your day? And it really helps me to bring awareness when it comes to really treating the cause of it.
Oh yeah, well, it's nice because it's like you were so aggressive in like your research too. So it's like all of our conversations are really easy because they just kind of, I feel like we both are learning something from each other every time we interact, which is awesome.
That's true. Yeah, you can see the friendship right there.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to dive into some questions before we get into today's topic, which is shoulders and back specifically. There are some questions that I wanted to ask you because you have seen so many people throughout the 11 years that you've been doing massage therapy. You're a great person to be able to ask these questions to. And the very first question that I want to ask you is, what is the most common injury that you see from people that come into your office?
I think probably the most common thing that I see is some sort of an impingement in the shoulder, just from posture and repetition. Some people, while they're working, they're not moving for 8 to 10 hours. And then they're in a CrossFit gym doing the most dynamic, fast-paced form of exercise they can. And they've not been like stacking themselves appropriately, and they'll fold in, they'll internally rotate, and they'll just pinch tissue between their acromion and their humeral head. And it just starts to inflame, it gets sensitive, and they start to compensate, and then they shift that work. So most of it's due to some sort of dysfunction that they're like either attributing to sleep or how they hold themselves in front of their desk.
And what do you mean by stack? Just to be able to kind of explain to people.
So like normally if you're putting yourself in a position for a long period of time, you want to make sure you're transferring work evenly. And if you are in front of your computer desk and you're leaning over, if you're rolling your back, you have internally rotated shoulder, you're like holding yourself in a very weak position for a long period of time, you're going to shift your body around awkwardly to absorb that extra demand on that joint. So you can do that for so long before you fatigue and then you start recruiting other muscles to pick up that support.
Right. Right.
You just keep shifting and you keep passing the buck until you can't.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure like that's one of the reasons why we're covering this today is talking about shoulders, is because a lot of us do a lot of functional training, including CrossFit, swimming, and many other different movements in which that shoulder's in kind of a dynamic range. And so we'll kind of get into that here in just a sec. What are your top 3 tips when it comes to avoiding injury? Right? You see a lot of people, like you say, you deal with a lot of people when it comes to pain management. What are if you could say, hey, if I could get everybody to follow these 3 things, right? What would those 3 things be when it comes to being able to avoid injury and be able to treat injury?
I think the first one would definitely be trying to work in ways to mobilize yourself throughout the day. So it's not like you're just going to come in and warm up right before you do a workout or whatever activity you are training for. And afterwards, you want to spread that out. When you wake up, you want to do things that are going to like force your rib cage to expand and open up, get your diaphragm working, pull your head back over your shoulders. Just make sure that you keep resetting yourself to a strong position, so you have that kind of available activation to pull from throughout the day. So it's just, I mean, when you roll out for 2 minutes after you do Fran, you're like, it's not really going to do anything for you.
Right.
So you can work in pass-throughs, work in some sort of cat-cow thing up against a wall. If you can, kick your shoes off of your desk and roll your arches out. If you can really be putting in time to build out a strong self and like know where you are in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where you start. Because if you just wait to mobilize until you have a problem, like you're never going to be solving anything.
Right. So the first part is awareness, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So awareness of making sure that you're stacked right. So all of us, that's kind of like slouching back in our chair right now, right? It's like, oh, wait a second, we should kind of be staying back, pull the shoulders back, kind of pull the head back, right? Kelly Starrett, I don't even know where my phone is, right? Every time I look at my phone, it should be in front of my face, not down, right? That kind of stuff.
So like the second thing is definitely to be like, I feel like build up a good like primary care plan, like have a coach, have other people that can watch you, help you figure out where your dysfunctions lie, because sometimes you don't know what's wrong until you're in pain. So, get a coach, get a trainer, get someone that's watching how you move so they can help reel you back in before you do damage. So like being active with injury is like, be aware of your body and put the time in to mobilize, but like have a second set of eyes on you, helping show you what you're doing wrong. Because we're all doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Like you're juggling a million things constantly, like work, family, social, all those things are going to draw your attention. So while you're working out, if you have someone just dedicated to keeping you in your own lane and you're not deviating in any way, you're not getting lazy, your ego's not putting you in check, you're making sure you're getting enough sleep, someone's asking you the questions that you deep down, you know what you need to be doing, but sometimes you need that little extra bit of accountability. Like that's a huge component. And then like the third thing, just making sure you get enough sleep. If you're tired, you're going to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm. And you're not recovering too, right? You're not getting into that kind of, non-REM or slow wave sleep. The body doesn't have the opportunity to be able to recover all those broken down tissues and get rid of inflammation and so on and so forth.
You never want to start your day in the hole. So, I mean, like if you aren't recovering and you are, pushing yourself and you are putting a lot of demand on your body, you want to make sure you're getting the right nutrition, you're getting the right amount of sleep. Like you don't want to be just burning the candle at both ends.
Right. And so with that in mind, what is your number one tip for getting a good night's rest? I got all kinds of them, but I want to hear yours. How do you set yourself up for a good night's rest?
I mean, pretty much like dialing in my calendar. If I can get all my stuff done, like before I get ready for bed, like if I don't I don't take care of like the major things that I need to check in with for like my other businesses, like I'm not going to get any sleep. So if I can just be productive throughout the day, I sleep really, really well, and just make sure you're hydrating, getting enough water, and
Sure.
really making sure that, like, I don't know, I sleep way better when I feel like I accomplished what I needed to for the day. So if you're proactive and you're doing things, like that's what I start with.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm a huge I'm a huge supporter of making sure that you have your schedule lined out, right? That you own your day and the day doesn't own you. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, you always encourage people to take care of their own body, right? In terms of mobilizing and stretching. So here's the question I have for you. And I'm going to say that it's one, knowing that you have a company that produces mobility tools, right? If you could only give one mobility tool, what mobility tool would you give to everyone, right? You only could give one. Which one would you give?
I mean, I think I'd probably have to go with a foam roller, just because anyone can use it. You just have to put time on it. It's simple. It's like you're not going to hurt yourself for the most part unless you're really bad. I mean, you have to be. I don't even know how you would really do that, but it's simple. Like instrument assisted tools, like you kind of have to put some time in and figure out how to scrape and like directions and what like fibers you're looking for. So it's a little bit more. You have to care about that a little bit more to jump into that stuff. But
Right.
foam rolling is everyone can do it. It's easy.
Right.
My foam rollers are like 3 tools in one, so it's super efficient.
That's right, dude. No shameless plugs here, dude. There's no shameless plugs here. On the other hand, right? So here's the like really basic tool. What is the one mobility tool that we might not know about that you have seen a lot of benefit from or a lot of results from?
Back to like the instrument assisted soft tissue mobilizing tools, like the Graston type tools. I love those. Like if you are a runner, if you are a CrossFitter, like all those things, like you are going to really, your tissue is going to feel really tight after you get done exercising. And that's a great way to mechanically flush lymphatic waste out of the area.
And what is that tool? What is that tool for people that don't know what that tool is? What'd you call it again?
It's called an instrument assisted soft tissue mobilizing tool. So you're mechanically just forcing lymph waste out of the area. You're separating your integumentary system and your musculature. So if like your skin was up top and the muscle is right here, you're gonna have like fibrous tissue kind of holding those groups together.
Yep.
It planes that, softens it, keeps everything kind of moving more fluidly.
Right. Because we want that natural slide and glide, right? When it comes to that tissue, because that's where a lot of like what we'll say like tacked down parts or tissues are. And what we mean by that is that's actually starting to grab on and it's not sliding. And when it's not sliding, then it's going to go downstream or upstream and it's going to catch on to something that's not going to move, right? Like a joint or a ligament or so on and so forth.
Well, you want those two systems to be as independent as they can be anyways, because that range of motion is so important. And like if you have traumas, like scar tissue is, like it's just going to flood that area. So you're just going to provide more adhesions and resistances that you want to break down. Like if someone is post-op and they've had a new hip or something done, like tools like this are great just to soften that area and just force out all that extra garbage. So you can mechanically move it and be really efficient. And it's a great tool. But like working on like Achilles, plantar fasciitis, any paraspinal stuff that's lateral to your SEM, perfect for that.
Yeah.
Like you want to know the areas you want to avoid that type of tooling is anywhere where like the musculature doesn't like support and protect the circulation tissue. So like you want to make sure you're not digging into your elbow or behind the knee or medial to your sternocleidomastoid or anything like that.
Sure.
They're
Cool.
great. So, usually you see them in like a physical therapy office or a chiro office.
Yeah, but you're saying you can do that yourself. There's a little learning curve, but you would be able to kind of get one of those tools and be able to work on that tissue.
You just want to like lightly scan. You want to put lotion on the area, and like if you go to a PT or a chiro, they don't have a ton of time to give you, so they make up for that time with pressure. So usually you'll see people that are super bruised up because they were getting worked on. But if you're doing it to yourself, or like when I treat, I slow it down. So I'm just trying to like leave like the tissue looking like flushed, just because I have more time than a PT usually has with one of their patients.
Right.
But
Right.
it's just getting online. There's tons of material. I've got a bunch of stuff on my Instagram page for it. It's just
Cool.
getting comfortable manipulating that tool around whatever body part you're really trying to affect.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. Well, let's roll into the two topics that we were going to talk about today. And the first one that I want to talk about is actually the back. Being a coach for so long, all the time, right? People would come to me and be like, oh, my back, or my hips are off and it's hurting my back. Give us kind of a breakdown of what you see of people who come into your office when people are talking about back injuries. What are the differences, right, in back injuries? What are things where you can treat, and the other things that you might send off to a doctor or maybe another health professional? Give us kind of your overview when it comes to backs, just in general.
Yeah. So a lot of times if someone's coming to see me for back pain, it's a lot more of a narrow scope than like shoulder, ankle, knee, any of those things. If I feel like someone has like, if they need an adjustment, or if they have like a rib out or something like that, or even if it's a little bit more serious, if they've got some sort of like sway in their back, or I really want to get those to someone like McBroom or another chiropractor, just because there's so many other underlying factors that if I put too much pressure on an area and someone's off their tracks, I could do more damage. So like if it's a function-based like issue, like if someone has most of the back pain that I see is like a hip flexor issue. So it's like psoas, iliacus, those type of issues. So if it can walk pretty fine, like they can straighten their back, but they can't load, I'm usually going to start in that area and kind of palpate around, see how sensitive they are, and just kind of work my way out. If it's usually, I don't really see a lot of like erector issues. Like quadratus lumborum is like a muscle that attaches your floating rib to the back of your pelvis. So it's sometimes if that seizes up, you'll rotate forward. So you'll adjust your stance, your strike pattern a little bit. So a lot of upper back issues really kind of stem more from the shoulder in my experience. And it's someone's just retracting and guarding, and then they're just hiking their body, and they're kind of losing that symmetry. And as soon as you lose that symmetry, like you're just passing off how your body absorbs work. And then you get these points, and then that starts to create other issues. But most of the back problems I see tend to be from that iliopsoas muscle.
And so you're actually, for the people that aren't aware of that muscle, you're talking about treating the anterior or the front side of the body to relieve pressure in the lower back, right? Or the back area. So the posterior side. Is that right?
Absolutely. If people are coming in for pain, that's usually what's going on. If someone wants to be preventative and just create more range of motion, if they're not there because of like they're in pain or they were in a car accident or they're trying to make up for stuff, like we'll do things like scraping or cupping or things to just focus on that kind of fascial restriction. But if it's something that's limiting them and they're there for back pain and not just restriction, if someone has like low external rotation, they want to improve that part of their shoulder, or they have a hard time like flexing their back, like those type of things, like a different goal. But if someone's there for pain and like looking to like refer them to a more of an appropriate source, I mean, if someone has a hard time breathing, I'm not really going to be the person for them right away.
Sure.
I'd rather be cleared by someone with a deeper education. And just, I don't want to have stuff, because I mean, every session with me is pretty cool. If someone's having a hard time breathing and we're getting into those kind of like those issues, I want to make sure they're starting off from like the most lined up straight form that they can, just to make sure that I'm not getting one of those rib heads into like a set joint, or we're just creating more possible inflammation.
And so if it's an anterior side, right, what's going on? What are they doing that's creating that shortening in the front of the body and that back pain? Like what do people need to avoid if you're saying, hey, there's something going on more on the front side than the back side? How do we avoid it? And if we're in that, how do we treat it?
think the biggest thing is like not so much avoiding it, just make sure you're moving more, because your psoas is the only muscle in the body that attaches your spinal cord to your femur. So like if you're in a sitting position all day and you're not moving, you're just kind of pivoting your hips and your shoulders, you don't have that constant flush and like range of motion of like getting that tissue to do its job. It has no reason to be like strengthening itself throughout the day. You're just neutral. And then you go to load it, it's like trying to like drop, 2 45-pound plates on extended arms. Instead of like, if you're to catch weight, you want to be flexed, engaged, and guarded. You want to support that area. If you're sitting all day and you're not active and you reach for something or you twist and awkwardly bend down to pick up laundry, like those are the type of issues that kind of jack up the low back. It's usually, I don't see a ton of injury from the gym when people are training hard, because I feel like a lot of CrossFitters are taking that time very seriously. And they're bracing. They've got other people kind of looking out for them. If someone's deadlifting and they're arching their back, someone's going to call them on it really quick and, pull them back. But I think a lot of the lower back stuff, anything with psoas, you want to make sure you're going to get a kettlebell and kind of like get in a plank position, find where your navel and that iliac crest, like the boniest part of your hip, like right in the middle, and you just let that kettlebell handle fall on top of that area. And then just get some digital compression there.
Do you have an impression of the psoas? Do you have your skeleton or anything that you have nearby?
I do not have it.
Okay. Can you kind of show just on your own body of like what the psoas is, or where the psoas, just so people kind of understand?
Yeah. So like psoas is going to be, you get to it anteriorly, so it's like there's less restriction there because you're not trying to punch through kidneys and all this dense tissue. But this muscle is like lining, it starts at the base of your thoracic vertebrae, goes down your lumbar, and it goes over your pelvis, and it darts back into the greater trochanter of your femur. So every time you take a step and swing, that's starting because this is flexing.
Got it. Okay. And so, and just to be clear, right, by sitting in a position, right, where the hips start turning, since that muscle is connected to the back and to the hips, this is where we start getting in trouble with that psoas.
Oh yeah.
And so if I'm at the office and I'm sitting all day long, you're just suggesting, hey, get up, or, do I get into a certain stretch, right? Should I get down into a squat, right? Should I work on twisting, put my hands up overhead? What would be like your one go-to for us, like office people, to do? And how many times should we do it a day?
If you wanted to get into the couch stretch, that's awesome. If you just wanted to stand up and just pull, like do that, like that quad stretch where you're grabbing the top of your foot and pulling that up behind your back, that's great. It's just adding motion to your routine. Every hour and a half, try to do 2 minutes of something. You could have a crazy elaborate routine, and that would be wonderful, but you're probably not going to stick to that. If you have something subtle that's on a Post-it that's just like stand up, do 4 air squats, like that's enough. It's just not being stagnant is the issue. If you can avoid just not moving, that's going to be great. And you also don't want to just jump into a standing desk. People are like, oh, I got a standing desk. It's great. But you're still not moving. You're going to create your own kind of hacks for that when you fatigue. So you're going to spread your legs. You're going to push your butt out. You're going to lean onto the desk. You're going to do all of these little things that really create the same problem as sitting all day does. It's not that you're sitting or standing. It's that you're not moving. That causes that group to just ratchet down tighter and tighter and tighter. And then when you try to engage it, there's a lot of resistance there.
Yeah.
You have a lot of nerve tissue. You have a lot of overlapping tissue from your sacrum to the neck of your femur. So, your glutes, so you have 6 muscles underneath the glutes that are just responsible for internal and external rotation. And you have a huge nerve that's punching right behind your piriformis muscle. Like every time you start to kind of seize up and protect yourself, you're closing that pathway that the nerve has to like kind of relay information and not be impeded by other structures. And then you start to get other pains.
That's really interesting, because a lot of people kind of talk about, oh yeah, I got to have my stand-up desk, like I got my stand-up desk, but you have a really good point in terms of we'll just go into the place that we can sink into, right? That we can just kind of hinge on to that structural part and kind of let everything go, even though we're standing up.
Yeah, if you're comfortable, you're doing it wrong, which is like if you're sitting down and you're not sitting on the boniest part of your butt, those ischial tuberosities, you are compromising yourself because you're sitting on your tailbone and you're tucking and rotating backwards.
Right.
You're
And
gonna
then
have all
that
these.
affects the psoas, right?
Absolutely. I mean, like it's gonna affect everything. Like I mean, all three glute muscles are gonna be affected by that. You're taking your skeletal system away from that like structural shelf, and you're relying solely on muscle tissue that's not engaged. So then when you go to engage that group, it's not gonna want to play.
Right. So then you go to the gym, right, and you try to go do a squat clean thruster or something, and you're moving from a dynamic range of like pulling to squatting, and you're asking that psoas that's been locked down all day to do something very dynamic, and it goes no, right? And so is that what causes those like hips to turn or structurally for people to kind of come out of place? Is really that psoas or those hip flexors that are like shortened down, and it kind of pulls the hips into an improper position? Like how do people like throw out their back or their hips or whatever the case is?
Oh, when they talk about throwing out a back, it's just like you're rotating something that shouldn't be rotating, and
Right.
you're creating, there's connective tissue that goes up and down like your whole spine. You're going to get something. There's a ton of pressure there because of that rotation, and it hurts to breathe. So they talk about that, or you could, people talk about slipping a disc, or most people have herniations everywhere. They're like, oh, I have a herniated disc. Yes, everyone does. It's just you've got a lot of pressure that's protruding out of that matter, and it's putting pressure on other areas that you don't need to have anything pushed on.
Right.
Getting where it's like you have that rotation, like no one's perfectly symmetrical anyways, and like when you have one leg that's always a little longer, and based on like how you sit, if you sit on a wallet, that's going to shift your hips huge.
Right.
The way you drive, if you're driving a stick, there's a little bit more engagement there with the clutch. But if you just have one leg out in front of you, that your right leg's, gassing and braking, and your left side is not doing anything while you're in the car, and depending on how low that seat is, that's shifting that hip responsibility, how it kind of ties into your upper body. If you lean back really far, you're tucking your tailbone. If you're not stacking, you are creating a problem.
Okay. Yeah, that's really good stuff. So then if we're trying to prevent hurting our back, right, or throwing our back out, or, we want to be able to have the strongest possible back, not only for our kids, but for exercising, what should we be doing, right? You've kind of touched on like, hey, you need to be moving. Don't stay sitting in your chair for 8 hours throughout the day. But what are your tips and tricks to be able to keep that psoas or the anterior side open, to keep your back strong, so that we can go off and we can do our fitness, and then we can go pick up our kids later?
So I probably one of the most important things I think you can add to your routine to strengthen everything is just making sure you're putting enough core time in from a hanging position. Like a lot of ab workouts from the ground create a lot of other pinch points, but if you can hang from a bar and just bring your knees to your chest. And then
okay. So you're talking about hanging and doing some knee tucks and holds, isometric hold.
Yeah, and you can do some oblique stuff, get some rotation in there. Any of that stuff is going to be great in that traction that you're not getting throughout the day because you're sitting, opening everything up even further. So you're going to have better spatial awareness because everything's open. Getting in a routine where you're doing the couch stretch, you're getting anything to where that core, where rectus abdominis and transverse abdominis are really supporting that group. It takes that extra responsibility off the psoas and your skeletal system. So you want to make sure you can evenly pass that work as you need to. And if you wait till every tile tips and you can't hand something off, that's when you feel that grab when you do something random. Normally you can transfer energy pretty evenly, but if you don't have a place to a secondary kind of route to absorb work, you're going to be in pain.
Okay. All right. So
compensation, you're going to shift everything down the road further, and you start using secondary tissues for primary function, and then everything fatigues and everything gets inflamed, and you don't use it the right way.
I love it. I didn't even think about that. I mean, I'll do knee tucks and that kind of, L sits, but I never thought of it that way. And that's really intuitive. That's cool. So if you can't, right, you have no hanging bar, right, then what's the next go-to in terms of strengthening?
Probably those Superman poses where you're laying on your stomach and you're just arching. Anything
okay.
that.
Oh, really? And
Yeah,
just
you can still
hold.
do some stuff from the ground. Yeah, just, I mean, go just pulse, try to do like 2 seconds where you're engaging flexion, 2 second break, 2 second engagement, 2 second break. But I mean, you can flip over and you can do some stuff. You want to support the low back because you don't want to just sit there and like drive structures into each other that are solid.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, if you can do those ab like training kind of routines where you don't
Uh-huh.
compromise like your sacrum and your lumbar, you're gonna get way more out of it, and you're gonna get way more engagement of rectus abdominis. Rectus abdominis can only reach so far when you're like on your back. So if you're hanging and you are pushing your belly forward, getting a little bit of like lordosis, a little exaggeration of your lumbar curve, you're gonna be able to activate more of that abdominal tissue. So when you go
Got
to
it.
flex it in, you're hitting a deeper range.
Got it. Got it. So what about hollow holds or hollow rocks? Good? No good? Do those?
I think those are great.
Okay.
I think it's you want to supplement everything. You just want to make sure that like if you can do a majority of that like lower core work from an upright position, it's going to be a little better because it's just less traumatic on your body. And
Okay.
if you don't have the opportunity for do that or to get that in, you go for the Superman pose. The hollow rocks are great. They're not as like you don't have that same kind of full kind of half extension to where you're like almost fully extending, but then you're retracting.
Right.
So it gives you a little bit more range.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is that doing more isometric types of holds is more beneficial than doing like contractions in terms of like sit-ups or GHDs or so on and so forth. Like if you had to give like one exercise, right, or a group of exercises, it would be more about kind of getting that spine in kind of a locked position, or do we want to have that full flexion and extension?
Well, you definitely want the full flexion extension, but you want to activate and isolate those groups when you're trying to support and fortify an area with purpose. So like all of the functional stuff, you want to tie all of that in together, but you want to put yourself in a position where you're not compromising anything else because you're going quick. Like GHDs are awesome, like the glute hamstring, like tie into everything. Those are huge groups. You want those huge groups to absorb work evenly.
Right.
So like when you're hanging, you're doing the ab stuff like that. That's a great workout. But I mean, if someone has a GHD at home and they don't have a way to do a pull up, that's crazy to me. That's impressive for them. And their garage is probably awesome, but they better have a pull to hold up on.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So really what we're suggesting, right, if there's anything that we're going to take home on this is being able to do some hanging knee tuck holds, right? Or L holds. Is that right? For 15 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or 15 seconds on, 1 minute off, whatever we can do, 4 sets. What would you prescribe on that?
Progression where you can just keep improving and strengthening. Like start low, because when you're isolating stuff like this, a lot of CrossFitters are relying on a lot of momentum with a lot of their exercises.
Got it. Yep. So,
yeah,
of course.
Stuff, you're tying that down. You're tying your breathing into like this type of flexion. So it's like really controlled. It's a lot slower.
Yep.
Like, and you just build from it. Like start off with 5 rounds of 4 seconds. Like,
got it.
And then let go.
To your ability.
Yeah. Because someone can give you a program, and if it doesn't fit what you're going to do, you're going to half it. And if you don't have someone watching you to make sure you're not halving it, you're not really going to get anything out of it.
Yep.
So it's like start slow, get comfortable with the motions, and just less is more when you're recovering.
Mm-hmm.
If someone gives you a huge, detailed diagram of homework, like unless someone's there pushing you and guiding you through that, it's a harder thing to accomplish than that. Like laying out 3 different simple motions, like bird dogs, like low back pain.
Yep.
Get on your hands and knees, extend your right arm, straighten out the left leg.
Yeah.
3 seconds, pull it back, switch. Like subtle things like that, where we can kind of get the body working together, where we're not compensating for one motion.
Yep.
And then you're trying to work around and get whatever range of motion you can based on that other opposing restriction.
Right.
It causes your hips to shift, you're rotating, you're dropping one shoulder, you're flexing glutes when you walk, but you're retreating in, and you shouldn't be doing all these other things if you can't get to the point where you're nice and neutral, and that activation is just totally with intention, and you're not putting yourself in a more vulnerable position just to finish a workout.
Got it. Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to the shoulders. one of the questions that I mean, you said it, right? You said, hey, what I treat most is probably shoulders and shoulder issues. How come? Why is it that people are coming in and it's, always shoulders issues? And is it always just CrossFitters, or is this like a general kind of assumption all over that people are coming in, they could be runners and they have some shoulder issues?
It's pretty general. I think CrossFitters, especially, just because like the nature of that beast is just fast, go, 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 and a lot of momentum. And the shoulder's the second weakest joint in your body. Like the only thing weaker than your shoulder is your thumb. Like there's almost no structural stability there that is not soft tissue. Like you have your little acromion right here, and that humeral head is pivoting, and then all those larger muscle groups are just pulling you in the direction you want to be pulled in. So if you've got like your rotator cuff, those are all the four pretty small muscles.
Right.
Which are pushing over a gap that provides motion when you engage.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you're internally rotated and you're engaging all this stuff, if you're internally rotated, all of these groups are stretched out now.
Yeah.
If you stretch out tissue and then you load tissue, you're going to injure tissue. I mean, you want to make sure you can support from like a strong, like flexed position so you can transfer as you need to. But the shoulder's very, very weak, and there's so many different opportunities for injury because of what you do with it. And a lot of the motions that people, like the way people stretch, like you need to make sure that you're stretching for what you want to do. Like one thing that drives me nuts, and it might not totally be right, but when I see CrossFitters take the PVC pipe and go all the way back behind their butt, it drives me crazy because you're never going to be in a position where both hands are back there.
Right.
At the same time, like it's just, and you're putting a lot of pressure and tension on those joints that are pretty vulnerable. So I mean, like you're in a snatch position, like go to the snatch position, get back there, come back, make sure you're flaring your chest, your diaphragm's going up, make sure that your clavicles are nice and neutral. You don't have one side hiking up really high, and figure out why that is hiking.
Right.
Like you have a first rib issue. Do you have got pressure from this clavicle dropping down on there? Do you have some brachial plexus issue?
Right.
Do you have capsulitis? So you could have frozen shoulder. You could have connective tissue from your scapula to the neck of the humerus that's getting thick.
Yeah.
And just that's restrictive.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, repetition is always going to be like, usually like repetition and like how you hold yourself throughout the day is what's usually going to create the issue. And then what you do in like rec time, like CrossFit it's so dynamic. It's not like running, like runners have like, 3 issues that pretty much all runners end up with. CrossFit, you could have any issue because you are doing everything.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So if people are coming in with shoulder kind of issues, and I know this is going to be really dynamic, so we're just going to kind of generalize this the best that we possibly can. Again, if you could say like, hey, if I were going to give you something to work on with your shoulders or to protect your shoulders or to open your shoulders, whatever the best exercise or mobility is to be able to go like, hey, if you did this every single day for 5 minutes a day for 365 days out of the year, I would have confidence that you would see some change. What would that be for you? What would you tell people to work on?
PVC pipe pass-throughs to that snatch position, hands down, like nothing is better than that.
Hands down.
Like there's no other motion or stretch or banded there's not, like you're getting your whole body to work together. You're putting yourself in a more proper position to deal with everything that might come across your plate.
So you're talking about the PVC pipe, and it's just to the point where you kind of feel that stretch, opening up the chest, right? Everything's kind of set. There's not this weird thing that's kind of going on, right? We're able to get to here, and then we come back. And so that's kind of opening up the chest, getting some range throughout the shoulder. And as long as we're kind of staying active. Now, what are we talking here? 5 reps, 1,000 reps? What?
I shoot for like 500 a day. Like, and it's just like small groups of 20, 25. And so your thumb is always up. You don't wrap. You're just in this position. You're never bending the elbow. It's never that kind of external rotation.
Sure.
You're just locked out, and you're just going to that snatch position on both sides. And you're just trying to, as you go, you're trying to push that bar away from you. So you're shrugging and you're resetting. and that's just it. That's all you need. I mean, like if you overstretch an area, you can kind of expose yourself to like a hypermobility issue.
Sure.
And then all the stability is gone at that point. You want to make sure that you are just stretching for what you're actually going to use it for.
Right.
And going past that snatch position, like even if you had to bail and get away from the bar, like you're not holding that bar.
Yeah, you're getting rid of it. Yeah, sure.
So just making sure that like, I mean, pass-through's best thing, like working on like the larger groups, like stripping your pecs, like while you're in bed, you're just reaching towards the ceiling, pinching that pec and dropping it to the side. Like
okay.
Hit the larger groups because they're going to be able to pass a lot more slack than like the little ones. The little tissues are going to be a lot more sensitive. So if you can solve the problem by stripping your lats, your pecs, and your traps, you're going to get a lot of leeway, especially if you're consistent. And if you're getting the pass-throughs in, you're getting that extra motion in, like everything starts to fall in place. Because when you look at the mirror, like you take your shirt off and your clavicles are nice and neutral, like everything's probably doing pretty well. If you take your shirt off and you've got one, trap trying to hang out by your ear, something is going wrong. Trying to figure out why is that shift taking place? Is it a shoulder thing? Is it a paraspinal thing? Like, am I rotated forward or my hips lined up with my, like, where is that dysfunction taking place?
Okay,
trying to map that out.
Like, yeah, I love that because that's something that people can really grab onto who end up watching this later. Is what you're saying is take your shirt off, look yourself in the mirror, and if there is some type of shift, right, that means you're opening yourself to injury because there's something that's off. Is that right?
Yes, there's some sort of dysfunction if you are, and no one's perfectly symmetrical.
Right, of course.
It should be pretty even. And like I'll see people and they'll come in super nice and their rhomboids will be all tore up or their trap will be super inflamed or something's going on where it's like they're trying to do this because this hurts. So they're retracting it, they're trying to guard themselves. Whether it's involuntary or they're physically unable to drop that down. Like it's a different stage of dysfunction. Got it.
And in that case, they really should come to you or to another massage therapist or professional because there has to be some serious intervention in being able to get those tissues to be able to like relax and to be able to set back into place. And again, like you were saying, being able to have the supervision of somebody to be able to say like, hey, it looks like we're getting back to neutral. Hey, I want you to do these pass-throughs. Here's some stability drills I want you to do. That would be the course of action if somebody was, super far off. Is that right?
100%. Like when you get to that point, it's like you're at that secondary level of care. Like we should all try and be in primary care. And you're everything primary is just preventative. Like having someone like you, dial in what they're doing while they're moving and then build a plan to fix that adjustment that whether they're intentionally making it or not, like they're aware of it and then they can focus on it while they're exercising. And then coming in to see me or getting an adjustment with a chiropractor or any little thing like that, it's like you're just trying to stay away from the hole. And by the time you're in this position, like you need to have someone put you in kind of a passive position where you're not engaging and they mobilize your body for you. So it's like they can pin you down to a position where it's like lock this shoulder down, go through some routines, and hopefully get, even if it's like a quarter inch of slack across multiple muscle planes, that will take all that extra pressure off that area.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to be able to like almost like yellow flag kind of thing, what is the one thing that people should start watching out for when it comes to pre-injury or maybe some aches or pains? What are the things where you would say like, hey, if you're starting to feel this, see this, your shoulder's starting to act this way, we need to step in and there needs to be intervention before there's something catastrophic that ends up happening? What would be those things that you could give to people for that to be, tangible for people like, oh yeah, my shoulder is kind of doing that thing or hurting here or feeling this way, whether here or back here or whatever the case is. What are those warnings?
I think the first thing I always tell people is like, especially with CrossFit, like make sure that you can hone in your ego and listen to your body. If you're feeling really fatigued and tired, scale that down a little bit. There's days to go for PRs and do all this other stuff, but if you are feeling fatigued, don't try and go at what your normal 100% is. Like, because if you do have that fatigue and you are tired and you're trying to transition weight,
Right.
keep it up with your friends, you cross the social hour, and that's where you get to kind of show off and have a good time. Like,
Right.
you gotta be careful, and you gotta just slow it down and be like, do I feel like this is a good idea? And it's a lot of like kind of internal dialogue stuff. It's just, if I feel awesome, I'm like, go for it. If I feel fatigued, I probably shouldn't try and get under the bar with that much weight. I should focus to have a little bit more of a like mobility day, go through the like motions, focus on posture, focus on like how you move that work.
Right.
So, like,
Right.
I
Right.
think that inner dialogue is the first thing. And then just, if you feel like a twinge, if you feel a pinch, like why do I feel like this is obviously foreign for me? Something is wrong. None of this stuff just happens. Like, or did you slip? Did you sleep wrong? Did
Right.
you, I mean, there's so many little things. It's just trying to like ask yourself what feels off. What could have caused that? Was it something I did in the gym? Was it a work thing? Am I having some carpal tunnel? Am I having something kind of just, or do you have no idea? And if you have no idea what happened, it's probably just a muscular fatigue thing, and you just need to either slow down a little bit or spend a little bit more time on the mobility. You're very diligent with the exercise part, but
Yep.
make sure you're lengthening everything. Make sure you're getting on the foam roller. Make sure you're rolling out your toe after
Sure.
Just make that more of a priority.
Sure. So if somebody's starting to feel that twinge, right, your suggestion to them is say like, hey, give it a day, right? Maybe give yourself a rest, maybe do some mobility, and then see, right? Because if it's a couple more days later and it's still that twinge, that's not a good sign, right?
Yeah. I mean, ego is going to kill you before anything else is in the gym. Like, that's
Right.
going to lay you for 4 months. If you push yourself and I mean, even if you just have some tendonitis in your AC joint, like that, it makes everything so much harder. So trying to get past that, it's so much easier just be like, hey, I'm going to go 75% today. I'm not going to go 100%. I'm going to try to open this up. I'm going to work some other things. And I don't have to do 45 snatches. Like, let's work around how you're feeling and trying to like have those conversations. And I think coaches everywhere need to, dial that in. If someone's feeling off, don't just point at the board. Right?
Yep.
There's a bro-y side that, they need to reel back from. It can be kind of annoying.
Yep.
But you support them. Like, hey, if you're feeling off, and like talk to, everyone should be talking to their coaches. Their coach should be talking to their members. Like, if something feels off, let's talk about it right now. Let's have something in the tank to kind of sub this out. That's not going to put such a kind of demand on that area.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because with the Ikon athletes, we really focus on two different ways to look at things. One is notice and name. That's the subjective way, right? Hey, notice, man, my shoulder's feeling a little funky. Name it. Why is it? Right? Oh, that's right. I did a bazillion squat snatches the other day. You know what? I probably should stay away from these overhead squats, the 50 overhead squats per time, right? Notice and name, subjective. And then we use more objective data with the Whoop in terms of being able to see like, hey, what's our recovery day? It's tanked all the way in the red, right? We got a terrible night's sleep. Should we end up maxing out on Isabel after feeling that twinge in the shoulder? Now we have different platforms to pull from, not only subjectively by teaching the mind to be able to go, wait a second, this isn't optimal. A shoulder that twinges or pinches is not optimal. I don't want to do anything that's not optimal. So I need to treat this situation and scenario. And then also to be able to look objectively on the other platform and to be able to go, ooh, man, my numbers are really, really down today, right? I decided to, go with my friends and party all night long, right? And drink a bunch of booze, and I got 2 hours of sleep. It's probably not the best time for you to jump into something like a heavy snatch day or a heavy clean and jerk day.
And when you have physical data like that the Whoop's giving you, and you can like actually see those metrics, that's huge. I feel like so many people are taught at a young age, it's like, oh, tough it out, rub some dirt on it, which is great. I mean, like, do what you want to do, but like, if you want to make a problem worse and you're doing a dynamic motion and something's bothering you, like, you're gonna shift. You're gonna transfer that work to something else that can't do it, and you're gonna pay for it later.
Right.
But I mean, I need to get a Whoop.
You need to get Whoop, dude. Join the Ikon team.
Dude, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I need it.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is that this is, when we're talking about injuries and we're talking about preventative care, when you start having something that nags or pinches or pulls or anything like a dysfunction, it's not a matter of if, it's more of a matter of when, if you don't attack it then, or you don't pull off the gas pedal then, right?
By the time you notice it, like the fuse has been lit and you're just kind of waiting for an effect that's going to really slow you down. And it might be a very expensive issue. I mean, if you have a slap tear, like, I mean, depending on insurance, like that, and then you're adding time to what you enjoy doing. So it's like you're
Yeah.
taking away, not only like you actually have to go to that tertiary level of care to get that fixed, your lifestyle is affected. So I mean, a lot of people like don't have a ton of free time, and if they get to go to the gym or they get to exercise, like that's their time. And if they're like, oh, we can't work out for 8 weeks, it's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Putting yourself in a position to really, just avoid that is huge. And like knowing, and you're totally, everyone's capable of it. You just have to like ask yourself questions and make yourself a priority, because you're already spending a ton of money on fitness, on wellness, on nutrition, dedicating a ton of time. Like it's not that much extra to like work in a little bit of self-care. And foam rollers are cheap, scrapers are cheap, PVC pipes are cheap, like all of those things that you need. It's very inexpensive. And if you work in a, like you're going to buy yourself so much range of motion that you're not going to be like just teetering constantly.
Right. Right. Well, and to my point, right, always to people is, you you have to invest to get the most out of something, right? You want to get the most out of your education. You got to invest into a college degree, right? If you want education, right? If you want the best body, you have to invest into the most organic, nutrient-rich foods. If you want a body that isn't damaged or injured, you have to invest your time and also your money by seeing a massage therapist once a month. And I'm a huge supporter of people going and getting that preventative care, even when they don't feel anything. Because like you said, by the time that you feel it, the fuse has already been lit, and people are very reactive when it comes to treatment to themselves, instead of proactive of being able to take cold baths, right? Saunas, stretching, going to yoga classes, right? Going and seeing your massage therapist once a month. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think having a plan and like building like a wellness platform for yourself, I mean, like have a coach, have people you can ask questions that can like at least point you in the right direction before things turn into something that one will be way more expensive to fix, that affects your time. Like it's like the only thing we can't get any more of. You don't want to have any of that hindered because you were too busy to have someone correct your posture while you're squatting.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Sweet. Well, Bobby, this is I took a lot out of this. There was some stuff that really elicited a response from you and from me. And how do we get in contact with you if people are like, hey, you know what, I need to invest into myself, into my wellness? How do they get a hold of you? What's your Instagram handle? What's your website? If I want to get a massage, tomorrow, which I know you're booked out for 2 weeks, so that's not going to happen. Give us the information.
So the Instagram is just Baum Therapy, just BAUM Therapy. My massage website is just massagebaum.com. And then all my mobility tools are at themusclestash.com. And I've got an Ikon code up there for 25% off also.
Okay, so there's an Ikon deal here, and this is for the mobility tools.
Yep, rollers, scrapers, apparel.
Oh,
everything.
sweet. Okay, can you type that into the message box? What the website what the website is, and then what the code is, because this is recorded and everybody will be able to kind of see that.
Oh yeah.
And then Marilyn, I know you're the only one that's stuck with us. Do you have any certain questions for Bobby?
No. I mean, I think the whole world of that is kind of, I'm not very knowledgeable on. So it's good to hear what he had to say. Made me think about some things. But no, I think I'm good.
Okay, cool. Cool. Awesome. All right, Bobby, were you able to get that into the chat box?
Oh yeah.
There it is. Okay. So the musclestash.com, right? They go into, when they check out, it's Ikon 25 or what?
Oh no, just Ikon for the 25% off.
You just put in Ikon.
Yep, just Ikon.
Okay. So the discount code is Ikon, and that will get you 25% off on any products. That's just at checkout.
Yep. I've got kinesio tape. We've got stash sauce. It's just like an emollient for the tool, and then any of the.
And then just in case, right, people want to get a massage from you, what's your website? Can you throw that in there real quick?
Just massagebomb.com.
There it is. There it is. Awesome. All right, Bobby. Well, as always, man, I love being able to catch up with you. You have a wealth of knowledge that I continue to pull from like an endless well. And I just appreciate you taking time out of your day to be able to talk to the Ikon athletes. I am going to put this onto the Ikon YouTube page so other people will be able to watch it as well. Anything else for us, Bobby? You've already laid so much for us.
Thank you for having me on, man. It was a great experience. It was fun chatting about all this stuff. And
yeah,
anytime you guys want to do this again, I'd love to be a part of it.
I love it, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for your support. Guys, if you guys want to get any more information from Bobby, you can go to massagebomb.com. They would be able to contact you from there. There's a contact page.
It'll email me, and then if you want to, you can message me directly at Baum Therapy on my Instagram, and I get back pretty quickly.
Awesome. All right, guys, there it is. There's the pro. If you need to get a massage or if you have any questions, this guy is the leading industry expert, my good friend, and somebody you definitely want in your corner for preventative care. Bobby, I appreciate your time. Marilyn, thanks for sticking with us.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. See ya.